So I've been looking into this ice rink shooting at the Dennis M. Lynch Arena, and three things immediately stuck out to me. First, the name of the arena. As in the David Lynch film Blue Velvet, which is a film that is incredibly coded to Donald Trump, Dennis Hopper famously plays Frank Booth, perhaps David Lynch's most well-known villain. So we have our Dennis and we have our Lynch, both of which are in the name of the arena. The second thing that stuck out to me like a sore thumb, Pawtucket Police Chief Tina Goncalves. Now, I have only heard that Goncalves name one other time, and that was in the Idaho 4 murder case. Kaylee Goncalves. Definitely hard to forget. And by the way, I do not remotely believe the official story of that case. I have looked into it very deeply, and I believe multiple people were involved and a lot was covered up. But I'm not going to get into that here. I just think that Kaylee and the others definitely deserve justice, but they're probably not going to get it, at least not in this life. Now, those murders took place on November 13th, 2022. And look at what happens if we go from that date to the date of the ice rink shooting. It is exactly 1,191 days, or your 9/11/01 numbers. Come on. No possible way is this a coincidence. No way in hell. Only other time I've ever seen the name Goncalves, and it's given us this number. I don't think so. No coincidences here. Not only that, but we've got 3 years, 3 months, 3 days, our big triple 3, which of course is half of 666. And you can also do 33 plus 3 is 36. Remember, the 36 triangular number is 666. In 39 months, 3 days, 39 plus 3, of course, is your 42. Elvis' death age, Washington, the 42nd state. April 2nd, 162 days before 9/11. Sorry, but I'm not buying it. These names are planted in these stories for a reason. And while I 100% do believe that those kids were murdered in the Idaho 4 case, I don't for a second believe this ice rink psyop. Not for an instant. And by the way, Kaylee Goncalves' dog was named Murphy. Who died 2 days before the ice rink shooting? Tom Noonan, who starred in RoboCop 2. What is RoboCop's real name? Alex Murphy. So for some reason, this story is being coded into current events. And now the third thing that stood out to me, the name of the suspect, Dorgan. Robert Dorgan. This is another name that I've only heard one other place. And that is both in the book and television adaptation of Stephen King's The Stand, as Barry Dorgan is one of Randall Flagg's chief minions, played by Chuck Adamson in the miniseries. And you'll never guess when Chuck was born. Yep, June 11th, 1936, the year after Elvis was born, in Chicago, Illinois. And he died on our 222 date, our order out of chaos, as above, so below number, in the year 2008 in Roseburg, Oregon. In fact, it's interesting that both him and Tom Noonan connect to recent stories, because Tom Noonan is in Heat, and Chuck Adamson is the detective who inspired Heat. You know Michael Mann's story Heat, about Robert De Niro as the bank robber and Al Pacino as the detective on his trail? Adamson inspired the Pacino character. It was apparently based on a real incident that Adamson was involved in. And Tom Noonan himself actually was in the movie Heat. And really, that story itself is one worth looking into, as Neil McCauley actually spent time in Alcatraz, and you know how that place connects to 611. McCauley and Adamson ran into each other in Lincoln Park in Chicago. Heat, by the way, has the famous score by Moby, who also scored Southland Tales and was born on 9/11. But anyway, this video isn't about that. So what do you think of when you hear the name Dorgan?
I'm Barry Dorgan, Chief of Vegas Security. What kind of an accident?
He stubbed his toe. Look, Mr. Dorgan, Chief, Dragon, Captain.
Dragon, exactly. It's an anagram for dragon. And they even mention it right there in the Stand miniseries. In fact, there's another character in the book who is not in the miniseries, named Hector Dorgan. Dorgan, another anagram for dragon. It's basically Dorgan, just spelled differently. And his character winds up crucified by Randall Flagg because he's a drug addict. But he's only in the book. Now we take a look at the name of the shooter, and we immediately see our big 137 number. The reason Trump got his ear clip on 7/13, the reason Shannon Doherty died on 7/13. We also have our 11/22 JFK assassination date, our 8/22 Irina Sarutska death date backwards, 2/28 Elvis died on the 228th day of the year, our 6/7 Elvis Jesse Water number. Also 607 is the 111th prime number. Space Needle open on the 111th day of the year. 9/11 leaves 111 days remaining in the year. 557 is the 102nd prime. Shannon Doherty born on the 102nd day of the year. 10/2, the Donnie Darko prophecy date. Our 44 kill number. But I want to make special note of that Latin 499, because the 499th composite just so happens to be 611. And Chuck Adamson, who played Barry Dorgan in The Stand, born on 6/11. Again, the only other time I've ever seen or heard the name Dorgan. Now here's some nonsensical news story about some guy who supposedly jumped at the shooter. Pure nonsense, like got his finger stuck in the gun or some other crap. It's a load of nonsense. But I want you to notice the 47 here. Of course, Trump, the 45, 47 president. And of course, here's more video. And wouldn't you know, they put players 6 and 7 right by each other for your 6-7. I mean, come on. It's total freaking nonsense.
I thought it was balloons at first, but it was not balloons.
Balloons. Balloons. Total nonsense all around. And check out where the Pawtucket Police Headquarters is. 121 Roosevelt Avenue. What have I said about that 121 number? The 121st day of the year is May Day, the day of pagan sacrifice. Of course, we've got Peter Eliopoulos reporting. It's got the EL in the name. 33 degrees outside. Of course it is. Of course, Peter can be a dirty reference. Sort of like Pawtucket, where it took place, can be a dirty reference. The shooter, of course, wound up being a transformer, and he targeted his ex-wife and his son. Well, what is a dad called? Paw. Paw tuck it. He's a transformer. Tuck it. Paw tucked it. Get what I'm saying? I mean, for real. How in your face? If you have the eyes to see it, that is. Of course, the first word of this article is weapons. You know how big the Weapons movie released on 8/8 last year is, as I've decoded it thoroughly. And wouldn't you know, the weapons seized from the shooter's Maine storage unit. Who is from Maine? Stephen King. In fact, 95% of his stories are based in Maine. The Stand, Barry Dorgan. One of the victims is even named Gerald Dorgan, and of course a big Stephen King film and book, Gerald's Game. I need to decode that film one of these days. Now, the final episode of the 4-part miniseries of The Stand aired on 5/12/1994. In it, Las Vegas, Randall Flagg's base of operations, gets nuked, and everyone there, including Barry Dorgan, meet their end. Going from that date to the date of the shooting, 11,603 days. That's your 611. And if you add 11 to 603, you get 614, Trump's birth date. So you got both your 611 and your Trump birth date right there in the amount of days. And again, the Antichrist figure in The Stand is Randall Flagg. When was Trump born? Flag Day. And what I'm doing here is showing you that these references, these names, they are not coincidence. You see how all of this connects perfectly. They put these names in here for a reason. I mean, why was the storage locker in Maine? Stephen King. Why else? Also, 31 plus 9 plus 4 is your 44 kill number. And 3/8, as in March 8th, plus 14 would be 3/22, your Skull and Bones date. 81st day of the year, Michelle Trachtenberg's reverse birth date. In fact, for further Trachtenberg connections, you can read this as March 1st, plus 9, plus 4 would be March 14th, your Pi Day. And by the way, remember that The Stand premiered on 5/8, the 128th day of the year. Erica and Charlie wedding date. Also Deep Impact's release date. Of course, we just had the death of Robert Duvall on Seattle Slew's birthday, and he was in Deep Impact. In fact, if we go from the release of Deep Impact to the death of Duvall, it's 10,145 days. You have your 101, which is the 26th prime number, which of course points to this year. You also have your 145. What is the 145th day of the year? May 25th, Shannon Doherty's final day on 9/02/10, George Floyd's death date. The Pearl Harbor film's wide release date in 2001. And you can even connect this to Charlie Kirk beyond the film Deep Impact just being released on his and Erica's wedding date, because we have our 10/14 Charlie Kirk birth date in there. And 5 days after that would be 10/19, of course, you're backwards 9/11. Start on February 7th, add 9 and 7, land on February 23rd, or 223, you're backwards 322 Skull and Bones. And here we have our big 333 number, again half of 666 with a 7. 333 times 7 is 2331. Add 2 to 331 and just get your 333. Now getting back to Blue Velvet for a minute, when did Dennis Hopper die? May 29th. That's JFK's birthday. He was also born on May 17th, which is the 137th day of the year. Remember, that was Shannon's final date on Charmed in the year 2001. Blue Velvet, like I said, a very Trump-coded film with a lot of head wound imagery in it. In fact, Hopper's character is killed by being shot in the head. Going from Dennis Hopper's death date to the ice rink shooting, 5742 days. Of course, Seattle Slew died on 5/7, and you know all about the 42, how it connects to Washington, Elvis, etc. 5/7 is also the 127th day of the year for that 12/7/84, because 12 times 7 is 84. And with this year being the big 250th anniversary of the country, you also have your 7/4 right there in the middle. And don't forget that this shooting was one day after Seattle Slew's birth date. And if you go from Dennis Hopper's death date on JFK's birth date, the president who famously got killed by a head wound, 59/11 days. You, of course, have your 9/11 in there. 5 plus 9 is 14. 1 plus 1 is 2. 142. The 142nd day of the year is 5/22, Memphis's founding date. The Gift, Tower Sacrifice, air date. Also 16 years, 2 months, 6 days. That, of course, is your 162 in the year 26. 194 months, 6 days. On a normal year, the 194th day of the year is 7/13, the day Trump got his ear clipped, the day Shannon Doherty died. Of course, it was a leap year, so it was the 195th that year. But again, it still connects because it's 7/13 regardless. And 194 plus 6 is 200. The 200th day of the year is 7/19, Trump's reverse birth date. And Dennis Hopper's full name, Dennis Lee Hopper, just so happens to equal 165 and 84. Like I said, Blue Velvet, a very Trump-coded film. He plays Frank Booth, like John Wilkes Booth, who shot Lincoln in the head. Trump born on the 165th day of the year, and you know all about 84. And just Dennis Hopper gives us the Beast System number. Also our 55 Satan number. 181 is the 42nd prime. 143 is the 108th composite. 521 Pearl Harbor premiere date. We have our 58 again. What have I been saying about that date this whole video? And 601 is the 110th composite. Actually make that prime, not composite. My mistake. When you have so many numbers in your head, you can't remember everything. And I'll have a full decode on Blue Velvet and more David Lynch stuff coming up. A lot to talk about there. That said, I'd be remiss if I didn't show you this little tidbit. Blue Velvet was released on September 19th, 1986. Remember that movie Him about football sacrifice that I decoded? It was released on that date last year, the 262nd day of the year. Going from that date to the ice rink shooting, 14,395 days. 4 plus 1 is 5. 3 plus 9 plus 5 is 17. 5/17. And again, when was Dennis Hopper born? May 17th, the 137th day of the year. Again, no coincidences. It's the Dennis M. Lynch Arena. Come on now. And speaking of the big 137, if we go from Chuck Adamson's birth on 6/11/36 to 6/11 this year, 3 plus 2 is 5, 8 plus 7 plus 2 is 17. Year 517 yet again, the 137th day of the year. Remember, Shannon Doherty, who is from Memphis and a huge part of this puzzle, her final appearance on Charmed was on that 517 day in 2001 in Season 3, Episode 22, your Skull and Bones number, an episode titled All Hell Breaks Loose. Also 90 years. The 90th composite is your 121, again the 121st day of the year, May Day, the day of pagan sacrifice. 1080 months, or your 1/8, Elvis birth date, 666 number. And by the way, just to refresh your memory of the importance of Shannon Doherty to this puzzle, going from her final appearance on Beverly Hills 90210 to her final appearance on Charmed, 2,549 days. Of course, the 254th day of the year is 9/11. Add 9 to that and land on September 20th, or 9/20. The 920th composite is 1106, or your backwards 611, upside down 911. And 2 plus 5 is 7, 4 plus 9 is 13, 7/13. Shannon died on 7/13/2024, the same date Trump got his ear clip. Her final episodes on both shows were also 6 years, 11 months, 22 days apart. Your 6/11 and your 11/22 JFK assassination date all in one line. And remember, she connects to assassination attempts because she died on Trump's ear clip date. In 83 months, 22 days, you've got your 322 Skull and Bones number. And 8 before 322 is 314, your pi date number. And we can't forget how connected to Michelle Trachtenberg Shannon Doherty is. Michelle, all about those eclipses, including one that was on Pi Day, 17 days after her death, and she was born 17 days before an eclipse as well. In fact, if you add 6 plus 11 plus 22, you get 39. Michelle Trachtenberg died at the age of 39. And by the way, 25 plus 49 would be 7/4. Again, this year all about that huge 7/4 date, the 250th anniversary of the country. Now, Chuck Adamson died in Roseburg, Oregon. Check out those numbers for Roseburg. We have our 42, our 111, our 48, our 666. 105 is the 77th composite. So here's this bit towards the end of the stand.
He tried to escape.
You know, one of these days you're going to get shot trying to escape, Dorgan.
One of these days you're going to get shot trying to escape, Dorgan. And guess what? A bunch of Dorgans got shot trying to escape. Go figure, huh? And on the date of 2/16, no less, which is just 6 days before the anniversary of Chuck Adamson's death date on 2/22. And speaking of Dorgan being an anagram for dragon, Tom Noonan starred in Manhunter, the very first Hannibal Lecter film, which was later remade into Red Dragon with Anthony Hopkins in the role of Hannibal Lecter. In fact, Manhunter is based on the 1981 novel Red Dragon. In fact, Tom Noonan's character Francis Dollarhide, who is the Red Dragon, the character name equals our 162611. And remember that Noonan also plays Kane in RoboCop, who has the dead Elvis skeleton. We also have 81 twice. What is 81 plus 81? 162 again. Which is yet another of the multitude of reasons Michelle Trachtenberg is so important, because her birthday leaves 81 days remaining in the year, and her reverse birthday is the 81st day of the year. 2 81s equaling that 162. We also have our 722 here, which is 611's reverse date, and our upside down 9/11/01, and over here 1620, or just 162. 611, yet again, all in the name of Tom Noonan's character, Francis Dollarhide, the Red Dragon serial killer. And Noonan died a day or two before Dorgan, an anagram for dragon, was in the news. And don't forget how the 81 connects to the 111, as is the 81st composite, and the 58, as 81 is the 58th composite. The Stand premiered on 5/8, Deep Impact released on 5/8, Erica wedding date 5/8. Michelle Trachtenberg's reverse birth date, the 81st day of the year, 322, Skull and Bones. And in this long story or article about the ice rink shooting, we have a lot of different names that equal a lot of different interesting numbers. But here's one of the more interesting ones: Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee. Now, why is that 209 so important? Because it is the 162nd composite. 6/11 is the 162nd day of the year. 101 for the year 2026, because it is the 26th prime. And of course, 115 is the 84th composite. And the 85th composite is your backwards 6/11. Also worth noting, these two numbers, that of course has a 254, 254th day of the year is 9/11. You can drop the 1 as it's a reset number. And it gives you your 149, the 149th day of the year is JFK's birthday. And 2310 is the 1966th composite. 1966, of course, the last year of the Fire Horse. Here's another one worth mentioning: Chris Labrizzi. 638 is the 522nd composite. 522, Memphis founding date, the Gift Tower sacrifice air date. 1319 is the 215th prime. Seattle Slew born on 215. 168, you know how that connects to the 84, as the 168th composite is 216. And just last name Labrizzi gives us our 111, our 57. Remember, Seattle Slew died on 5/7, the 127th day of the year, and Michelle Trachtenberg died on the 57th day of the year. Our 77th composite, our 5/1 Mayday sacrifice date, our 666. It says here that Dorgan briefly served in the Marine Corps, enlisting on April 26, 1988. According to military records provided by the service, less than 3 months later, on July 13th of all dates, Dorgan was separated from the service with the lowest military rank. So if we go from Dorgan's military discharge date to Trump's ear clip date, Shannon's death date is 13,149 days. What is 13 plus 149? Yep, 162, 611. Go figure, right? And of course, those numbers are also your 13 with your 149. The 149th day of the year is JFK's birthday. Not to mention 1 plus 3 is 4. 1 plus 4 plus 9 is 14. 414. Which is the 333rd composite. And it was also 36 years for our 666 number. And if we go from the date he joined to the date where he was discharged, 2 months, 17 days, that's your weapons number, your 12-7. Also 11 weeks and 1 day for your 111. And by the way, April 26th, when he supposedly joined the Marine Corps, is the 116th day of the year for your backwards 611. So in a way, this could be seen as a 611 with your 88 portal Trump infinity number. A Major Jacoby Getty, a Marine Corps spokesman, was interviewed talking about Dorgan's character. This, by the way, is another Lynch reference because there's a character in Twin Peaks named Dr. Lawrence Jacoby, and there is another character named Major Garland Briggs, who connects very heavily to 8-4 and 611. And by the way, that was Lawrence Jacoby, and what was the guy who thought it was balloons? Olin Lawrence. See the wordplay on display here. The Lynch Arena is on Andrew D. Furland Way. That 178 is a big number, as it's the 137th composite. The prime is our upside down 911 or 611 numbers, and the 178th composite is 228. Of course, Elvis died on the 228th day of the year. Also, our Trump's current age, the 67th composite is 92. 281 is the 60th prime. What Super Bowl did we just have? With a lot of sacrifices, including Will Byrne on that all-important 2-6 date. And when you know that 773 is the 137th prime number. So that's 2 137 connections. And 1068 isn't quite 1086, the beast system number, but it is the 888th composite beast system number. They're also now saying that Dorgan was cousins with the ex-wife he murdered. In fact, it said that he had 6 kids by 3 different women. There's your 6-3 or 3-6-666. In fact, Garo will love this one. One of his kids from another wife, Amanda Wallace Hubbard. Our 147, the Golden Gate Bridge, open on the 147th day of the year. Our 66 twin number. Our 123 murder number. Our 60. Our 882, which can also be a 162 because 8 plus 8 is 16. Silas Core. I mean, come on with these names, man.
What happened?
He shot my family, and he's dead now.
This.
No emotion whatsoever. It's her dad. He killed her family, but no emotion, and she's more than willing to talk to the reporters. That makes a lot of sense, yeah?
He has mental health issues.
Any idea why he would have done this?
He's sick. He's very sick.
And that was Hubbard, by the way. Oh, and how very convenient that it just so happened to be Coventry High School that was playing hockey. As you can see here, the elephant's enemy was said to be the dragon, and Coventry is also said by some to be the birthplace of St. George, who slew the dragon, or the Dorgan. And while it took place in Pawtucket, Providence sure is in these news stories a lot, as it's the bigger city nearby, and wouldn't you know that Providence means the protective care of God, or of nature as a spiritual power. Which, by the way, brings it back to the stand, because in the end, Vegas is nuked because God makes it happen. He foresaw the events, and he causes the nuke to go off. It wouldn't have otherwise. So God intervenes and takes out Vegas and Randall Flagg, the Antichrist figure. in the end using Flag's own magic against him, turning it into a figurative hand of God to set off the nuke. And that reminds me, I should obviously show you the gematria of Barry Dorgan. We have our 123 murder code, our 60. What Super Bowl did we just have? We have our 66 twin number. We have our 1095, which is the 9/11th composite, as you can see here, which is also interesting because if you drop the 0, that's 195, and Trump had his ear clip on the 195th day of the year. Shannon Doherty died on the 195th day of the year. 7/13, because it was a leap year. Normally is the 194th day of the year. We also have our 5/8. When did The Stand premiere? 5/8. That 174. The composite is 222, order out of chaos, as above, so below. 745 is the 612th composite, 612, George Bush Sr. birth date, you're backwards 216. The 30th composite is 45, so yeah, Barry Dorgan, a loaded name in gematria. And played by Chuck Adamson, or Charles Frederick Adamson, born on 6/11, died on 2/22. By the way, this is not the only 6/11 connection to The Stand. I have a video coming up dedicated solely to decoding The Stand, and it will be very interesting indeed. By the way, Adamson was born 1 year, 5 months, 3 days after Elvis. And 153 is the 116th composite, you're backwards 6/11. We've also got our 137 number here in the months and days. And we have the 142nd day of the year, Memphis' founding date, with a 47 over here, and the percentage of a common year. Also 74 weeks, 2 days, that's your 74. And with 2, it becomes your 76. Now you want to see something pretty cool? If you go from Elvis's death date to Adamson's death date, it's 11,147 days. That's your 111 with your 47. Trump, of course, a 45-47 president. The 111th day of the year is 4/21. Add 47 days to that, and what will we land on? Go figure, it just so happens to be June 7th, our 6/7 Elvis Jesse water number. Now, the 147th day of the year is also May 27th, the Golden Gate Bridge's birthday. Some people will try and tell you that my birthday, May 28th, is the Golden Gate Bridge's birthday. No, it opened on May 27th. Yes, it was just to foot traffic, a bunch of people walking over the bridge, but it still opened on that date. And then it opened to vehicles on my birth date. So the 27th is its actual birth date. Now, if we add 11 to 5/27, what will we land on? The same exact date, 6/7/2026. Crazy how that works, huh? Also 30 plus 6 is your 42. And it's 366 months and 6 days. Your 36 along with your actual 666. And what is 3 times 666? Ironically, it's 1998, your 666 year. Now, getting back to Tom Noonan, notice that he shares Shannon Doherty's birth date, April 12th. He was born 20 years before she was. Now, of course, in RoboCop 2, he plays Kane, the Elvis fan, and the distributor of the drug Nuke. In the movie, Belinda Bauer's character pulls the plug on Kane after RoboCop injures him. Kane was obviously going to survive, but her character wants his brain for the RoboCop 2 robot. and she uses the drug nuke to control him. Note her birth date, June 13th, 1950. By the way, in The Stand, June 13th is when The Plague is released by Elvis fan Charlie Campion. Now check out her full name in gematria. We have our 254, of course the 254th day of the year is 9/11, and we have our 421 Seattle Space Needle opening date. 92 is also the 67th composite, and the 92nd composite is 123, which again is a murder code. And by the way, something I've so far neglected to mention about the 92 is that the 92nd day of the year just so happens to be April 2nd. You know, I've talked about that date a lot, but I have not mentioned that it is the 92nd day of the year, 4/2, which is 162 days before 9/11. Remember, Jennifer Syme, Keanu Reeves' girlfriend, died on that date in 2001, no less. So the 92 connects to the 42 as well. Also interesting to note that we have 1963 in Latin and what happened that year, the JFK assassination. Now if we go from her birth date to Noonan's death, it's 27,640 days. 640 plus 27 is 667. We just barely missed the 666 number, but we do have our 66 twin number with our 67 Elvis number. Also 2 plus 7 is 9, 6 plus 4 is 10, 9, 10, which means if you were to include the end date, this would be a 9/11. And 75 plus 8 plus 1 is your 84, but also 75 plus 81 is your 156. And you remember that the 156th prime number is 9/11, and 156 itself is the 119th composite, your backwards 9/11. So it seems that Belinda connects a lot to 9/11. And it's absolutely worth noting that from her birth date to 6/11 this year is 9/11 months, 29 days. The 29th prime number, by the way, is 10/9, your Yale Skull and Bones founding date, and the 29th composite is 44, the kill number. So either one of those would fit right alongside the 9/11. And of course, 2 plus 9 actually is 11. Include the end date though, and it's 9/11 months, 30 days. What is 30 days after 9/11? 10/11. Michelle Trachtenberg's birthday, and she was all about the tower sacrifice. Remember that 10/11 is 9 months, 11 days into the year, and that 10 times 11 is 110. 75 plus 11 plus 30 is also 116, you're backwards 6/11. In fact, her character name in RoboCop 2, Dr. Juliet Fax, still connects to 9/11 because 199, the composite is 254. And also still connects to 421 because the 82nd prime number is 421. We also have our 137 number here, our 26. Want to know what else equals 179? Dennis M. Lynch Arena. Also, by the way, 8/16, you know who died on that date. Now, Daniel O'Herlihy is also in some other decodes I have coming up, but he's also in the film as the old man, the one who is the head of the board at the Omni Consumer Products Company. Look at his birth date, May Day in the year 1919, and he died on 2/17. Now, who was the first Triple Crown winner, and when did he win it? It was Sir Barton, and he won it in the year 1919. The same year O'Herlihy was born, and he died on 2/17, which this year was the start of the Fire Horse year. Now, if we go from his death to Noonan's death, it's 76, 67 days. We have our 66 twin number right there in the middle of our 76 and 67. And remember how the 9/11th composite number is 1095. We have that here with a 2, perhaps pointing to a second 9/11. And by the way, Tom Noonan equals 121. Again, the 121st day of the year is May Day, the day of pagan sacrifice. And Daniel O'Herlihy was born on May Day. Noonan's character Cain was sacrificed for the RoboCop 2. And if you go from Daniel O'Herlihy's birthday to Noonan's death date, it's 39,006 days. 39 plus 6 is your 45. But more importantly, 3 times 9 times 6 equals your 162,611. And that's going from his birth date on May Day, the year that there was the first ever Triple Crown winner, to his death date, who played Cain, who created the drug Nuke, and who had Elvis's remains. And O'Herlihy is in a lot of movies about sacrifice and being born on May Day. I am not surprised. Like I said, I'll talk about him more later. But his name equals 145. The 145th day of the year is May 25th. You know about that date. Also 233, which is the May Day number, as it is the 51st prime. May Day 5-1. And wouldn't you know, there's an 82 there, because the 82nd prime is 421, the Space Needle's opening date. And real quick with Noonan, Manhunter came out August 15th, 1986, one day before Elvis's death date. 39 years, 6 months before Noonan's death. 39 plus 6 is your 45. And in the months, you have your 4-7 and 7-4, both forwards and backwards. But most interesting is 2,061 weeks and 2 days. That's a backwards 216 and a backwards 162, both together. And the remake or readaptation of Manhunter, Red Dragon, came out October 4th, 2002, going from it to Noonan's death. 85-34 days. 8 plus 5 is 13. 3 plus 4 is 7. Your big 137 number. 85 plus 34 is also 119. Your backwards 911. And there's more to talk about with Noonan, but this video is getting a bit long in the tooth, so let's end it with this. From Daniel O'Herlihy's birth date on May Day 1919 to 6/11 this year, 39,123 days. Of course, Michelle Trachtenberg died at the age of 39. You know how important she is. And 123 is a murder code. But what is 39 plus 123? Yep, 162. Our 6/11 yet again. Seeing a lot of it in this video. In fact, even 3 times 9 times 1 times 2 times 3 gives us our 162. How crazy is that? And here, 107 years, 1 month, 10 days. 107 plus 110 is 217. And he died on 2/17/2005. 217 is the big number in Weapons, the 8-8 Lionsgate Portal movie with Gladys Lilly. A perfect cipher match to Trump. It's also our Pearl Harbor numbers, our buildings 1, 2, and 7 numbers. Our 12 times 7 is 84. And of course, the start of the year of the Fire Horse. So all around loaded. So some pretty interesting numbers going from the birth of the guy born on May Day to 6/11 this year. And of course, again, he was born the same year as the first ever Triple Crown winner, And Seattle Slew, of course, won the Triple Crown on 6/11/77. But anyway, a lot more to talk about. I've been behind in my videos. All glory to God, and as always, thank you for watching.